After her divorce, my sister crashed at my place for a bit. Then she tried to toss my wife's photos and sell her rings, so I played the security footage at family dinner. When she called, her voice was calm. Too calm. Not broken. Not shaky. Just measured. "I just need a few weeks," she said. "A place to breathe. Until I figure out what's next." I didn't ask for details. She just finalized her divorce, and the last time we talked, she said she'd never live alone again. I knew how that sounded. Knew what it meant. I also knew what silence on the other end of the line really was. Desperation wrapped in dignity. So I said yes. I hadn't said yes to much lately. The house was quiet now, too quiet. My wife had passed 2 years earlier, and everything still looked exactly the same. Her books, her teacup on the windowsill, her sweater folded on the back of the couch like she might walk in any moment and ask me to move it. I didn't. I wouldn't. When my sister pulled into the driveway with a rental car and 2 overstuffed suitcases, I stood in the doorway, hands in my pockets, wondering how long a few weeks would really be. She hugged me tightly. Too tightly. "You're a lifesaver," she said. I didn't say anything. Just moved aside to let her in. She stepped into the living room, looked around, and gave a small whistle. "Looks exactly the same." "It is the same." She dropped her bag by the stairs and smiled like she owned the place already. The first night wasn't so bad. She took the guest room upstairs, the one with the blue curtains and the dresser no one used. I made dinner, pasta with too much garlic, the way I used to make it for Claire when she was sick and couldn't taste much anyway. My sister barely touched it. "Too heavy," she said. "I've been doing light stuff lately. Greens, smoothies. Trying to reset." "Right?" She poured herself a glass of white wine from the bottle I'd opened 2 weeks earlier and left half full on the counter. She drank like she was trying to erase something. I didn't ask what. By the 3rd day, she started rearranging things. Subtle at first. She moved the coffee table books around. Put the vase in a different corner. Added her own throw pillow to the couch. Bright pink with gold embroidery that didn't match anything. "Just trying to add some energy," she said. "It's a little museum-like in here." "It's not a museum." "Well, feels like one." I bit my tongue. Because what do you say to someone who calls your grief decoration? She stayed in the house while I worked. Said she needed space to think, to journal, to meditate. I started noticing more changes. Her clothes hanging in the hallway closet. Her shoes by the front door. Her vitamins lined up next to Claire's old ceramic teapot. I didn't remember saying she could spread out, but I also didn't say she couldn't. And in this house, silence had started to count as permission. A week in, she asked if she could freshen up the guest room. "Just new sheets. Maybe different curtains. Feels heavy." They were Claire's. She paused. "I know. I just thought." "Don't." She blinked but didn't push. But the next morning, the curtains were gone. She'd folded them into a box and replaced them with something gauzy and pale, like hotel drapes. I found the box in the hall closet. My breath caught a little when I touched it. Not because of the curtains. Because of what it meant. That weekend, I came home to find the framed wedding photo missing from the hallway. It had hung there for 9 years. Claire smiling in the sunlight, veil caught mid-breeze. Me, looking at her like I was afraid to blink. Now there was a new mirror in its place. I found the photo leaned against the wall in the guest room closet. Face down. I asked her where the mirror came from. It was on sale. Just thought the hallway needed more light. It didn't. She looked at me. "You're living in a shrine, you know? I'm living in my house. She's gone. I know that. Then why does it still feel like she's going to walk in any second?" I stared at her. "Because I want it to." She looked away. "You need help." "Maybe. I'm trying to help you." "No," I said. "You're trying to erase her." She didn't apologize. She just left the room. And that was when I knew this wasn't temporary. She wasn't visiting. She was taking space that wasn't hers, and trying to reshape it like it never belonged to someone else. I started locking the door to Claire's old study. There wasn't much in there, just notebooks, a few keepsakes, a pair of earrings in a velvet box. But I didn't trust her anymore. Not with her words. Not with her hands. Not with the way she looked at the place like it was available. One night, I came home and heard music. Loud. Pop. Her kind of thing. I walked in and saw her painting the living room wall. A soft green, fresh and wet. Claire had chosen the beige color herself. Spent days agonizing over paint cards. Now it was gone. Just like the photo. Just like the curtains. What the hell are you doing? She turned, brush in hand. You said nothing about paint. Because I didn't think I needed to. You're spiraling, you know? This house is dead. I'm bringing it back to life. It's not your house. I live here. No. You stay here. We stared at each other. And for the first time I saw it. Not sadness. Not healing. Not a sister trying to rebuild. But entitlement. She didn't apologize. She just kept painting. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the locked door of Claire's study. I knew what was inside. And I knew she wanted it gone. Because to her, memory was clutter. But to me, it was the only thing still breathing in this house. I unlocked the study, stepped inside, and sat down. It smelled the same. Faint lavender. Paper. Something warm and clean. I looked at the earrings in the velvet box. Claire's favorites. I closed the box and placed it in the drawer. Then I looked up at the bookshelf and realized something else was missing. The photo album. Gone. My sister wasn't cleaning. She was erasing. And I knew, deep down, this wouldn't end quietly. The photo album wasn't in the study. I checked twice. Then 3 more times. The spot on the shelf where it had sat for years was empty. No dust outline. No stray post-it. Just a blank space that felt louder than any slammed door. I didn't ask her about it. Not right away. I went back to the kitchen and made coffee with trembling hands, pretending I wasn't thinking what I was thinking. That she'd taken it. That it wasn't the first thing. That it wouldn't be the last. Over the next few days, I kept quiet and watched. I noticed more things out of place. A scarf Claire had worn every fall missing from the closet. The glass bird figurine she loved gone from the bookshelf. An empty jewelry box I used to keep locked, now open, abandoned with the key still in it. I asked her once gently if she'd seen the album. The one with the wedding pictures? Yeah, that one. She didn't blink. Maybe you misplaced it. Or boxed it up. You've got too many things lying around anyway. That was the moment something broke. Not rage. Not grief. Clarity. I was no longer paranoid. I was watching something being dismantled in front of me, piece, by someone who thought she was helping. Or worse, someone who just didn't care. That night, I opened my laptop and ordered a small security camera. No wires. Discreet. Motion activated. It wasn't about catching her in the act. It was about knowing where the boundary really ended and how far she'd already crossed it. It arrived 2 days later. I placed it behind the row of books in Claire's study, angled just enough to catch the room's center. Then I locked the door again. And waited. On Friday, I pretended to leave for work early. Pulled out of the driveway. Drove around the block. Parked behind the church 3 streets over and walked back on foot. I watched from across the road. At 9:32 a.m. she stepped outside. Glanced both ways. Lit a cigarette she never admitted to smoking. Then went back in. By 10:04 a.m. the study light flicked on. That night, after she went to bed, I downloaded the footage. I didn't know what I expected. Maybe her staring at the desk. Maybe her crying or going through old journals. What I saw instead made my throat go dry. She opened the drawer. Pulled out the velvet jewelry box. Opened it. Lifted one of Claire's rings. Turned it in the light. Slipped it on her finger. Laughed. Then took out the rest. Laid them on the desk like they were hers. Took a photo of them with her phone. Put them in a pouch. And walked out. I watched the clip 5 times. Then closed the laptop and sat there in the dark for nearly an hour. I wasn't angry. I wasn't heartbroken. I was done. The next morning I asked her how things were going. She smiled wide. Energetic. Actually, I might be meeting someone later. There's a woman who does estate jewelry appraisals. Friend of a friend. She thinks some of Mom's old stuff could be worth something. She looked me straight in the eye. Not a flicker of guilt. I figured I'd finally clean out some of those boxes. You don't even wear any of it. I didn't respond. Just nodded. And walked away. That afternoon she was out for most of the day. I used the time to go through what was left. The box of Claire's keepsakes under the bed light. Her favorite bracelet gone. A scarf missing. The black and white photo from our honeymoon replaced by a generic landscape. I pulled up her browsing history on the shared tablet. Searches for jewelry buyers. Pawn shops. How to value gold rings. How to clean vintage gemstones. I took screenshots. Emailed them to myself. At this point, it wasn't about convincing anyone. It wasn't even about confronting her. It was about proof. Because when someone rewrites reality, the only defense you have is a record. She came home late. I heard her humming as she walked through the door. Tossed her bag on the couch. Opened the fridge. We should really get better wine, she called out. That $7 stuff you drink is depressing. I didn't answer. Just stared at the ring finger on her right hand. Claire's emerald band glinted in the kitchen light. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed and pulled up the security footage again. Watched her open the box. Try on each piece. Pose in the mirror. She didn't look like someone in mourning. She looked like someone moving in. I got an email from my mother the next morning. Subject line, dinner this Sunday? Text. We'd love to see you. Your sister says you've been distant. Hope everything is okay. I stared at the words. Then clicked reply. I'll be there. I didn't tell my sister. Just said I had plans that evening. She shrugged. Might be good for you. You've been moody lately. Sure. Tell Mom I'm doing great. Best I've felt in years. I'll let her know. Before leaving, I packed a small flash drive. Loaded it with 3 things. 1. The security footage. 2. The screenshots of her search history. 3. A photo of Claire's ring, the one she now wore like a trophy. Then I zipped the drive into my jacket pocket and drove. I arrived at my parents' house 10 minutes early. Parked in the same spot I always had 2 down from the mailbox, under the crooked tree that shed every fall like clockwork. The air smelled like wet pavement and old pine. The kind of scent that made you feel like a kid again even if you hated your childhood. I sat in the car for a while. Hand on the flash drive in my coat pocket. Not thinking. Not planning. Just waiting for my pulse to slow down. Inside, the house looked exactly the same. Same floral couch. Same dusty photo frames. Same bowl of stale peppermints on the hallway table. My mother hugged me like she hadn't sent her last text with passive-aggressive punctuation. You look tired. I am. She ushered me into the dining room already set for 6 even though only 4 of us were coming. Just habit, I guessed. Old ghosts don't clear out with a single cleaning. My father was in his recliner, pretending not to hear anything. He gave me a nod. No words. My mother poured wine like it was a peace offering. She's been struggling, she said, without saying who. You know that. We're all doing the best we can. Sure. She said you've been distant. Cold. Maybe. She moved in with you to heal. You think that's easy? I didn't answer. She set the glass down in front of me, too full, like a dare. At 6:10, my sister walked in. Fresh makeup. New dress. Claire's earrings. Not a copy. Not a replica. The same small sapphires I gave Claire on our first anniversary. They swung slightly when she tilted her head to greet me. You made it. I did. She kissed my cheek like nothing had ever happened. I didn't flinch. Dinner was baked salmon, steamed vegetables, awkward conversation. My sister dominated the table, stories about her new life, new people, new plans. There's this woman I met. Does interior design. I might partner with her. Something casual. My mother lit up. You'd be amazing at that. You always had a flair. Exactly. And honestly, that house needed the help. She said it without looking at me. Just sipped her wine, smiling. At some point, my father asked me how work was. Fine. You still doing the spreadsheets? Still doing the spreadsheets. He nodded. Lost interest. The meal dragged on. No one asked why I was quiet. No one noticed I hadn't touched my drink. Or maybe they noticed, but pretended not to. That was our family's specialty. After dessert, some dry cake and store-bought whipped cream, I stood up. Cleared my throat. I brought something. They looked up. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket. Walked to the living room. Plugged it into the TV. The screen lit up. Blank. Then grainy footage. Muted. Date and timestamp in the corner. I pressed play. It started with the study door opening. My sister entering. Looking around. She opened the drawer. Took out the velvet box. Carefully. Like it belonged to her. Opened it. Pulled out each ring. Tried them on. Smiled at her reflection in the window. Laughed. Took a selfie. Put them in a pouch. Walked out. No one said anything. No one moved. I hit pause. The frame froze on her smile, Claire's ring on her finger. I turned back to them. My mother's face was pale. My father stared like he couldn't see. My sister? Still. But her jaw was tight now. She opened her mouth. That's not a. You don't understand what I do. You have no idea how much pain I've been in and that gives you permission? I wasn't stealing. I was holding on to something. You act like she was a saint. She was my wife. Silence. She was my wife, I repeated, softer. And you walked into her room, took what was hers, and wore it like costume jewelry. My mother stood. Maybe this isn't the place. This is exactly the place. I turned to my sister. You have 24 hours. What? To get out of my house. You're serious? You've been in my space. You touch my memories. You sold things that weren't yours. And then you sat at this table, in her earrings, and smiled like you earned any of it. You're being cruel. No. I'm being done. She looked at our mother, expecting backup. But my mother just stared at the screen. At her daughter, frozen in time, laughing with someone else's ring. I walked to the door. Opened it. You can keep the cake. And left. That night, I didn't go home. I booked a hotel 2 towns over. Slept without dreams. The next morning, I returned just after sunrise. The house was quiet. Her car was gone. So were the pink throw pillows, the mirror in the hallway, the scented candles. She'd taken them all. And oddly, the coffee maker. I smiled at that. Like she needed one last word. I walked into the study. The jewelry box was empty. But I already knew that. I opened the drawer underneath and placed the flash drive inside. Locked it. Not to revisit, but to remember that once I was quiet too long. I changed the locks that afternoon. Then opened all the windows. Let the air move through every room she touched. Wiped the counters. Turned Claire's photo face up. Put the earrings back in their place. She texted once. You're unbelievable. I didn't reply. She hasn't spoken to me since. My parents haven't brought it up. Maybe they never will. Doesn't matter. The silence now feels different. This one I chose. The house was still. For the first time in months, maybe years, I could hear it breathe again. Not in a metaphorical way. In the literal one. The way the pipes clicked at night. The floorboard in the hallway that always creaked. Even when no one stepped on it. The hum of the fridge Claire used to complain about. Said it sounded like a sleeping cat. All of it was back. Or maybe it had never left. Maybe I just stopped noticing the way a home speaks when no one is trying to shout over it. I spent the day cleaning. Not scrubbing. Not purging. Just restoring. I put the hallway photo back. Rehung the curtains in the guest room. Found the old scarf Claire loved. Stuffed in the back of the closet under my sister's yoga mat. Still smelled faintly of her perfume. I didn't cry. Didn't rage. I just folded it. And placed it gently back on the shelf. Exactly where it had always lived. I walked through each room like I was meeting the house again for the first time. Not because I needed to grieve again, but because I needed to remember what it felt like when no one else was telling me how to feel. The next morning I changed the locks. Not because I thought she'd come back, but because she no longer could. That mattered. Not as punishment, but as peace. I didn't tell anyone. Didn't text my parents. Didn't call my sister. The silence that followed wasn't cold. It was clean. Weeks passed. Then months. Work went on. Life resumed. I started making proper meals again, not just toast or coffee or leftovers. Some days I still talked to Claire. Not out loud. Not in some ritualistic way. Just a passing thought here or there. You'd hate this rug. The neighbor planted those awful tulips again. I finally bought that kettle you wanted. She never answered. But somehow that was enough. One Saturday morning, I sat on the porch with a book. Birdsong in the trees. Sun cutting through the fence slats. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel haunted. Just quiet. Just present. A car slowed in front of the house. Silver. Unfamiliar. Paused at the curb, idling. I didn't move. Eventually, it rolled on. No one got out. No one waved. It didn't matter who it was. Not anymore. The following Sunday, my mother called. First time in months. Voicemail only. We were thinking of having a small get-together. Just dinner. You're welcome, of course. If you want. No apology. No mention of what happened. Just an invitation wrapped in pretend normal. I deleted it. No anger. Just choice. Some stories don't need a final scene. Just an ending. One evening, I was in the study. I started writing again, not books, not essays. Just small thoughts. Little memories. Glimpses of Claire. Of me. Of who I was before grief turned into fog. And I realized something. My sister hadn't broken anything. Not really. She tried. But all she'd done was rearrange furniture. The foundation? Still here. The walls? Still mine. The memories? Untouchable. People ask sometimes, friends, coworkers, people who heard bits and pieces, do you talk to her? No. Will you? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. But if I do, it won't be like before. Because there's no version of me anymore that lets someone walk into my space and rename it theirs. A month ago, someone from church asked if I'd ever consider selling the house. Too many memories, they said. Too heavy. I smiled. It's the lightest it's ever been. One last thing. Last week, a neighbor's kid rang my doorbell, said his dog ran into my yard. I let him in to look. He paused in the hallway, pointed at Claire's photo. She looks nice. She was. Is she your mom? No, I said. She was home. He nodded like he understood, then ran off with the dog, laughing. I stood there for a long time after, looking at the photo, at the house, at the quiet, and I realized, this place used to be filled with ghosts. Now it's filled with me, and that's enough.